UFC 233 canceled. I mean, there will be a UFC 233, I'm sure. I don't know how they'll pivot and change all that, but it was supposed to go head-to-head with Bellator, which is a banger of a Bellator card that night. You will be there, James.
For Fightful. Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, for Fightful. Shout-outs to Bellator. Even though they're not sending us the highlight videos anymore, I don't know what's going on. That has been a PR mess. I've had people asking me, hey, why haven't you posted the Bellator highlights lately? Bellator hasn't sent them to us. I checked with one PR, and they said, you're still on our blast list. I checked with the other PR, and they said, you're still on there, but I didn't get them either, so that's weird. But other outlets are getting them. Bellator, come on. Fightful wants those highlights. And maybe this time, don't flag us as pirating them next time, and then get us a copyright strike. What's going on, Viacom? Anyway, hell of a card that night for Bellator. And UFC, quite honestly, couldn't compete when they lost their main event. Not on pay-per-view. Also, at least from a Fightful perspective, you're dealing with NXT TakeOver Phoenix, which is going to be a big show. And I was looking at that, and I was dreading it. I was dreading that night. This, for me personally, I like it. For the UFC, I like the idea too. What I don't like is moving Askren and Lawler back a month and a half. What were your thoughts on the cancellation of this show?
I think it's expected at this point. I mean, really, this is better for the fans. There's nothing more annoying than having to flip back and forth between a UFC card and Bellator card. Bellator is, as much as people say they'll never be the UFC. There are instances like this where they have played their cards right, and I think that if you look at the fact that Bellator was able to get the form, and I think UFC was going to go to Anaheim, which isn't as big of a market. So I mean, that alone, Bellator was already sort of a leg ahead there, and it's just a stacked card. I mean, that's why when I decided to apply for this event, I told you guys I want to go for Bellator because, I mean, frankly, if you looked at the names even before this was canceled, Bellator had bigger names, and there are times when they have sort of had one up on the UFC. So this is just one of those instances. Again, we every week we talk about this. I'll say it again. UFC does too many events. I mean, had they just and now you have the ESPN deal, so that's going to complicate things even further. They need to have good shows for those, like the new TV partner. So it was just bound to have a situation where they couldn't compete, and this is the situation there. And as far as Askren Lawler moving, I agree. I still think this is the wrong fight to make, Sean. Again, you're having Askren's debut against someone who's going to do no trash talking leading into the fight. That to me is a wasted opportunity. It's a great fight on paper. It's going to tell us a lot about Ben Askren as far as can he, handle the striking of Robbie Lawler, but build-up wise, there's going to be no buildup. It's going to be Askren talking and Lawler just nodding like a serial killer. So that's that.
Yeah. And even though UFC canceled one of their shows in the first quarter, they still have more first quarter shows than they've ever done before. But for one, I'm glad I get that January 26th date a little bit lighter. And we get a little bit of a break until Dillashaw and Cejudo. I like that.